Dr. Mittal. So, Dr. Mittal is a very close friend. He has been in the past the chairman of the RSSDI Delhi chapter, and currently he is the senior diabetologist and head of the Center for Diabetes and Metabolic Diseases at Delhi Heart and Lung Institute. He has, to his credit, a lot of publications and a lot of honors and awards. And I would request Dr. Mittal, he's speaking on brain and gut link in the pathophysiology of diabetes mellitus. Over to you. Floor is yours, Dr. Mittal.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Vinod Kumar, for those enlightening words. And I would just share my screen now. Yeah, is my screen visible?
No, sir.
No? Okay, just a moment, just a moment. Just a moment. Now?
We started screen sharing, sir. Yes, visible.
Yes,
now it is visible, sir.
Okay. I'll make it full screen. Yeah, now it's okay. So good afternoon, friends, and I convey my thanks to my dear friend, Dr. Bansi, and his entire team from DiabCare. And like it's my proud privilege to share my thoughts on gut and brain link in pathophysiology of diabetes. So way back, long hundreds of years back, Mr. Einstein, he also said that intuitive mind is the sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. Now, the important point is that we have created a society now which honors the servant and forgotten the gift. So basically, the intuitive mind is what we call as a gut feeling. And I would be now sharing my thoughts that this gut is basically the gut feeling. Actually, even anatomically, our gut plays an important role and controls our brain. So this gut-brain axis consists of bidirectional communication between central nervous system and gut, that is enteric nervous system. And it is linked with many disorders in the form of GI disorders, as well as central nervous system disorders, emotional, cognitive, and peripheral intestinal functions. Now, more importantly, a gut-brain now is a gut-brain microbiota axis. It is not just gut-brain. So microbiota is the third component, which is in fact the most important component of this gut-brain axis, a triangle now, basically. And this dysbiosis of gut microbiota is responsible for many CNS disorders and GI disorders. Now, central nervous system, basically there is, hypothalamic, we know hypothalamus is the main, organ in our body or gland, which controls everything. And it gets activated with the, emotions and stress, and that there is a limbic system, which is another important system, which is constitutes by amygdala and hippocampus. And it leads to the release of corticotropin releasing factors, which ultimately leads to release of ACTH and then cortisol from the adrenal glands in the periphery. Now, CNS also communicates along with, so this is a direct control of CNS on our body. And other is parallel to this, there is both efferent and efferent, which is autonomic nervous system, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic. So that's how the CNS controls our body directly through hormones as well as indirectly through the autonomic nervous system. But at the same time, at the same way, enteric nervous system, which is recently, it was basically came into picture after 90s, late 1990s. There it was shown that even interstitial cells of Castle and enterochromaffin cells, they're also under the influence of gut microbiota, which has a bidirectional effect on CNS as well as gut. So gut, CNS, and microbiota, there's a bidirectional control on each other. So we can see here in the picture that, this is a limbic system, this is amygdala and hippocampus, and this is pituitary. So through emotions and stress, hypothalamus is controlling and releasing CRP, which is releasing ACTH from pituitary. And then there is a control direct through release of ACTH and cortisol from adrenal glands, and then autonomic nervous system. And this is through vagus nerve. So basically stress, which we perceive in the brain, that directly leads to some emotional disorders, but indirectly also through gut-brain axis and changes in the microbiota. Dysbiosis also is linked to autism as well as anxiety and other disorders. So basically, we can see here the same thing, hypothalamus releasing CRH, and then ultimately there's ACTH and cortisol, and there is an effect in the body at the periphery. Now, this is an important slide. Again, there we have seen, we can see that gastrointestinal dysbiosis, that is dysbiosis in the microbiota, leads to gastrointestinal disorders, inflammatory bowel diseases, very important disorders. And the other is central nervous system disorders, autism, anxiety, depression, etc. And then there are changes in the brain. So basically, it depends on what we eat, the macronutrients, the components of the carbohydrates, proteins. Then there's a role of prebiotic, probiotic, lipids, etc. And that gets digested, and that only leads to, whether it is health or disease. It depends on what we eat and how much we eat. Then gut-brain axis, again, suppose we eat high-fat diet, there is a reduction in Akkermansia, which is an important microbiota, and there is increase in Firmicutes, which is harmful, and there's also decrease in bacteroides. So this leads to long-chain fatty acids and lipopolysaccharides, cytokines, and there's an inflammation and disease later on. Similarly, red meat also, there is a increase in Enterobacteriaceae. There is a decrease in fecal bacterium. So basically, this also ultimately there's formation of phosphatidylcholine derivatives, etc. And then if we eat high fiber diet, which is healthy, then there is increase of bifidobacterium, which is an important, a part of constituent of microbiota, healthy microbiota. And there's also increase in fecal bacterium. So these are important, and that leads to, short chain fatty acids, which are relatively beneficial to us. Now, this is basically to show that diet, constitutes like food macronutrients and micronutrients, and ultimately, whatever is useful for the body gets digested and goes to the blood. But there's an indigested material also, which includes some gut microbiota and also some kind of fiber, non-soluble, and other things, which ultimately, either make a gut microbiota dysbiosis, or it can be healthy for the microbiota. So there is an important part that what we eat and how much is an important component to decide for microbiota. So there are a number of effects of this microbiota, which is basically effect of gut, and that is positive effects are in the form of role in digestion, and then role in vitamins, plus helping the immune system, brain development, emotions, and behavior. So these are important, and then effect on the gastrointestinal tract. And harmful effects are inflammatory diseases, insulin resistance disorders like metabolic syndrome, diabetes, obesity, GI disorders, cancer development, like colonic cancer has been related to gut microbiota dysbiosis. So this has to be understood. And once we make changes in this harmful microbiota or dysbiosis to a symbiosis or a healthy microbiota, we can target the diseases which we are not able to target with the medications, and even chronic kidney diseases. Now, this is homeostasis in a gut microbiota. Basically, it is symbionts, and we have commensals and we have pathobionts. So there's a kind of a balance has to be there. Symbionts are helpful ones, commensals are which are there normally, and pathobionts are which are harmful. So basically, when we are, like it depends on high fat diet, alcohol, and other disorders and antibiotics, etc., which leads to dysbiosis. And there is an increase, or there's an overloading of pathobiont, and that leads to basically obesity, then type 2 diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, colorectal cancers, celiac disease, autism. So many things are there. So what I want to convey again and again is that gut is playing an important role, and we should emphasize, and studies are going on, research is going on, that if we change this microbiota from dysbiosis, which again is in our hands, suppose we eat healthy diet, then dysbiosis will not be there much. If we are eating unhealthy diet and other stresses, then obviously there would be dysbiosis. But once dysbiosis is there, even if we can, fecal matter transplant and other things are already ongoing from healthy volunteers to patients, and that is helping us in controlling the diseases. So basically, dysbiosis of microbiota, which is basically a gut linking to brain, can lead to so many other disorders, not only brain, even GI disorders, liver disorders like NAFLD, cirrhosis, metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerative disorders, even respiratory disorders. So, there's so many things, which only microbiota are responsible. And if we focus and target these, we can handle all these diseases by just handling microbiota. Okay. And once there is a dysbiosis, there is a release of, there is a, imbalance between bile acids, short chain fatty acids, lipopolysaccharides, uremic toxins, etc., which leads to various diseases. So basically, our gut bacteria or gut is manipulating our mind. Okay, so that gut feeling, holds true to some extent, although we, talk in a very light manner, but ultimately science also says that gut controls brain. So how gut, which is taken now as a second brain, influences mood and well-being is also to be understood well by all of us. So basically, brain, as I told you, is controlling through, hypothalamus and then, vagus nerve, and ultimately either whether, there's a production of short chain fatty acids, cytokines, cortisol, YY peptides, and that is responsible for other diseases. So basically, there's a bidirectional communication between all these, and that is, between CNS, enteric nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, neuroimmune and neuroendocrine. So this is what is basically now, this gut-brain axis should now be converted to brain-gut microbiota axis. All three components becomes very important now. So these are things which are ongoing world over, and which I would just, convey, focus here that there are studies which are going on for the biomarkers in the stool to find out whether there's a dysbiosis ongoing or not. So short chain fatty acids are being labeled, and zonulin, fecal, caprotectin, and beta glucuronidase. So these are the levels, once we do, we can find that there is some, dysbiosis going on, and we can take action accordingly. So enteric nervous system, basically, there are bacterial metabolites in the form of short chain fatty acids, butyric acid, propanoic acid, etc. And then there is a sympathetic nervous system, which is, controlled with the release of serotonin, which influences memory and brain. We know serotonin inhibitors and agonists which are given for a brain. So this is an important thing. Then Helicobacter pylori, again, effect on gut-brain axis. Then other important bacteria are Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium. They are part of probiotics, so-called probiotic, which we normally take them lightly, but they are important constituents. And if we know the composition and the concentration of various, bacteria or bacilli or microbiota in that particular pre or probiotic, we can accordingly manage many diseases. Now, there are effects of this, the gut microbiota to a brain, and then brain to gut microbiota. So gut microbiota controlling brain, there is basically production, expression and turnover of neurotransmitters. So there's a control of these by gut on brain, like serotonin and gamma aminobutyric acid, production of intestinal barriers, production of mucus modulation, bacterides, metabolites, and mucosal immune regulation. Okay. Now, brain to gut microbiota, alterations in the mucus, biofilm, motility, permeability, immune function. So there is a parallel, multiple, it's a very complex thing which is ongoing between brain, gut, and microbiota, what we have. And there are almost 500 million neurons, and, yet has no conscious thoughts. And basically, there are no thought processes, religion, philosophy, or poetry, yet it can alter or danger your important response. And 90% of these, basically inputs or signals are coming via vagus nerve. So vagus nerve also plays an important thing. And as I mentioned earlier, enteric nervous system was basically discovered late 1990s. So from enteric nervous system, there is a serotonin release, and once it is inhibited, it can even counteract osteoporosis. It has been seen in mice. So these are, basically what I'm going to emphasize is that there's certain things which are, we can target, like a therapeutic target. We can control many diseases where we are failing in, like inflammatory bowel disease. We are failing almost. The whole life patient is having this disorder, and we keep on giving anxiolytics and anti-motility agents, but patient doesn't improve. Then certain immune disorders and autism and, anxiety, stress. So basically, we can have a good control and treatment for these disorders in future. Now, this is again important thing, which we have to understand, that human gut is sterile. When a newborn is born, the gut contains, it is sterile, but later on gets colonized. Okay, once the birth is there, and then, basically because of, the diet and other diseases, infections. So by 1 year of age, there's a unique bacterial profile, and this converts towards adult profile later on. Okay, so important point what I want to make here is that at birth it is sterile. Okay, so there's a complete, it's a very good thing. And then by 1 year, there is a healthy kind of a bacteria development. But as subsequently, when infant grows into a child and then later on adults, there is a kind of development of other microbiota, which may be beneficial or harmful depending on what we eat. So basically, this is a very good, picture where we can see that this is a prenatal, and then birth, it is sterile. And when there is a postnatal, there is a colonization of bacteria. By 1 year, it gets stabilized, and then it grows into adult. So this is basically, these studies are done in, mice, and it has been seen they follow the same pattern what is there in the, human beings. So basically, important point is that, there's a colonization after birth, and 1 year, it becomes stable, and then it develops into adult, which, actually is harmful because of our today's, modern lifestyle and eating, junk foods, etc. So immune system cytokines, germ-free, studies are ongoing, and basically they are in animal studies, and they are germ-free, like at birth, suppose we take it, a newborn, and there it is sterile, and then we do studies. So similar studies are going on, germ-free mice, and those are basically, important for the benefit of human beings. So basically, germ-free animals are studied, and they are used to evaluate the role of microbiota on central nervous development. Wide spectrum antibiotics affect. We keep on taking so many antibiotics without even thinking, but that is changing our bacteria. Sometimes it is killing even the beneficial bacteria. So we have to be very clear and very, cautious when we eat antibiotic. And obviously, probiotics also have some role to play in our health. Now, if we see the functional relevance of this microbiota, we can see, it's like for normal motility. So this is normal motility also. So for normal functionally, also microbiota is important. But if there's a dysbiosis, there is a dysregulation, it leads to disease. So this is basically germ-free, mice, they've been taken, and, basically they are then engaged in high-risk behavior by putting them or exposing them to high-fat diet and other things, which I will be telling you in my next slide. So and then the studies are done to link this changes in their behavior, in their emotional disorders, depression, anxiety, and that's how we are, the research is going on at the time being. So gut, brain micro communication is going on, and, we have a stable gut microbiota at birth, which is normal, good for gut physiology, but later on there's a dysbiosis, and that has an abnormal effect, not only on the gut, also on the brain, and that leads to central nervous CNS disorders, as well as, other, disorders, which I've already enumerated, neurodegenerative in the liver, involving almost whole of the body. Selection and cultivation of a limited number of candidates, for biome reconstitution from a very broad array of organisms which colonize humans. So hundreds of species that infect, parasitize, or, colonize human beings, So they are being under study, like how can we modify this dysbiosis so that we can have a good control on the metabolic diseases and other disorders. Now, this is another important point. Studies are done on transparent zebrafish, and it was seen that fatty acids are visualized, this transparent are visualized on with a fluorescent tag. And it was seen that the certain type of diet which make them more fatty, And that, I will tell you. So that increase. So, like when we give that particular diet, which is a healthy diet, basically, that leads to more of firmicute population, and that leads to increased storage of lipids in the intestinal cells. So basically, a particular kind of diet, when is given to a fish, there is an increase in firmicute population, there's more storage of fat, and this fat is basically, that's what we call omega-3 fatty acids. So, what we can develop these things, and we can have more of these, fat from the fish. So that's how, things are going on, and we can always get benefit. There are certain
Dr.
clinical...
Mittal, can you please hurry up? The time is gone now.
Yeah. So basically, there are, almost 2 decades have already been, we've been working on this. And so we have already seen that dysbiosis is an important thing to target. And basically liver diseases, if you remember, I still remember in my, UG days, and then during PG, we used to give ampicillin, very high dose, metronidazole to patients who used to come to us in hepatic encephalopathy. So basically these are, but now we can use certain probiotics also to handle that particular disease. Now, human, say application in human, beings, we have already, like Akkermansia, Lactobacillus, fecal bacteria, Bifidobacterium. These are important, names and constituents of microbiota, which we have to manipulate to get rid of a disease. This now is an important slide, sir. I will just take not more than 2 minutes, 1 minute only. So this is, in the past, whatever diseases used to be there for the brain, basically, there were only 2 things, psychotherapy and medication. Still, we are doing the same thing in certain areas. But at least now we should start thinking. This is a present discovery that stress, antibiotics, poor diet are responsible. So basically, healthy diet also becomes an important. Psychobiotics, probiotics, prebiotics, and then fecal matter transplant also are important, because psychological disorders are the ones where there's no treatment and patient lives lifelong, and there's gradual increase in these disorders. So if we focus on this, we can help these people to improve. And the other important thing is a bottom up now approach. That means the gut on the top, which is controlling the brain. So, once we have a good microbiota, like, and top down approach, so you can understand. And studies are going, which is beyond the discussion today, maybe during question answer, the germ-free mice is taken and it is humanized or it is reconventionalized. And then whether it is exposed to, the fecal matter from a normal, say newborn baby or a mice. So that's how, and then we can, the studies are ongoing and we can, have a target. So basically, this is my last slide now. That gut-brain axis, now it is gut-brain microbiota axis. We should not segregate microbiota, which is the most important part of this triangle. And it is important for not only well-being of human host, but at the same time, development of various diseases. And there's a bi-directional control between these. And these are strain specific, as I mentioned again and again, a couple of strains which are involved in certain diseases. So we can have prebiotics and probiotics with those strains to target certain diseases. Future research is required from structure to function of these microbiota, host microbiota interactions, and the causality, so that we can always have certain say fecal matter transplant is already going on, but a specific probiotics or prebiotics which can help us in treating these disorders which we are feeling today. So with this, I convey my thanks to all of you, and I, for your patient listening. Thanks again. Thank you very much.